meeting.
All set. Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, directors and staff, and pleased to invite us all to the inaugural Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District meeting for 2022. As this meeting gets underway, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Comox First Nation. My name is James Warren, and as the Corporate Legislative Officer, I will call this inaugural meeting of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board of Directors to order. Thank you to everyone for attending today. Director Unger, I see you have a hand up.
I'm just waiting for you to move on the agenda.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that Jonathan Kerr and Stephanie Gowan are both attending the CSRHD meeting as alternate directors for the town of Comox today. I understand that today is alternate director Gowan's second meeting and alternate director Kerr's first meeting. So welcome to you both. I also want to introduce to the board our new Chief Financial Officer, Jennifer Nelson. Jennifer started with us in early January, and so today is Jennifer's first CSRHD board meeting. And Jennifer, I wonder if you could just say a few words to introduce yourself, and then the directors can see who you are.
Hi there. Thank you, James, and the Deputy CAO to the Chair and Directors. I just wanted to thank you for this wonderful opportunity. A little bit about myself. I've lived in the Comox Valley for pretty much most of my life, and prior to starting here with the Comox Valley Regional District, I worked for the City of Courtenay for the past 18 years in various financial management roles. So I'm just really excited for this opportunity to build on my experience with the city and working with many of you here through the Regional Hospital District. So just thank you very much, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Welcome.
So the first order of business at inaugural board meetings is to conduct the election of the chair and vice chair. I will begin by calling for nominations for the position of chair. Any director may put forward another director's name, and each time a director is nominated, we'll make note of his or her last name. I will call for nominations 3 times, and at the close of nominations, I will ask each nominee in reverse order from which they were nominated if they will let their name stand for election. If more than one director is nominated, each candidate will have 3 minutes to make a campaign presentation. Following the speeches, we will conduct the election by way of an email to each of you requesting your vote through an online poll. Jake will send that out, and we can explain a little bit more about that should we conduct an election. When all of the votes are submitted, Jake and myself as statutory officers will count the ballots, and I will then announce the results. If you experience any technical difficulties in submitting your vote, you can text me directly. If there are more than 2 candidates and no candidate receives a clear majority of votes on the first ballot, the candidate with the lowest number of votes will be removed and the voting will be conducted again. This process will be used until there is 1 candidate who receives a clear majority of ballots cast. If there are 2 tie votes, the board will have to pass a resolution to either determine the election of chair by the drawing of lots or to start the process over. The process for the election of the vice chair is the same as I've just described. However, candidates will be allowed just 2 minutes for their speech. And following the elections, I will ask for a resolution to destroy the voting results. Are there any questions? Seeing no questions, I will open the floor for a call for first time for nominations for the position of chair of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board of Directors. And Director Unger, I see your hand up.
Thank you, James. I'd like to nominate Director Cornfield.
Director Cornfield, thank you. I'll call a second time for nominations for the position of chair. And I will call a third and final time for nominations for the position of chair. Seeing no further nominations, Director Cornfield, do you allow your name to stand for the position of chair?
I will.
Thank you very much. Then I'm pleased to announce you acclaimed as the chair of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District for 2022.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will open the floor now for nominations for position of vice chair of the board.
I can nominate Director Hamir.
All right, Director Abram, you've nominated Director Hamir. And I see Director Cole Hamilton, your hand up.
Yes, I want to nominate Director Hillian.
Thank you, Director Hillian. Call a second time for nominations for position of Vice Chair. And I will call a third time for nominations, a third and final time for nominations for Vice Chair. Seeing no further nominations, I will confirm with Director Hillian. Do you allow your name to stand for the position of Vice Chair?
Yes, I do. Thanks.
Thank you. And Director Hamir, do you allow your name to stand for the position of Vice Chair?
I thank Director Abram for nominating me, but I won't. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hamir. Then Director Hillian, I'm pleased to announce you acclaimed as Vice Chair of the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District for 2022.
Another resounding success. Thank you.
And with that, I will turn the presiding role over to Chair Cornfield. Do you want to sit here or there? Yeah.
Good morning, and thank you everyone on the board for your continued support. I look forward to carrying out the remainder of our term with, and congratulations, Director Hillian, for your election as Vice Chair. And I look forward to carrying on with our strategic planning and moving us towards the future. So our first item of business would be adoption of the minutes.
Mr. Chair, I'd move adoption with one little typo to be fixed. The first line of the minutes, the word attendance, the title line misspelled or typo.
Okay, staff have taken care of that, Director Lee, so that would be good.
So,
Walling.
Okay, so moved and seconded as corrected. And is there any other discussion? Seeing none, is there any in opposition? Seeing none, we'll declare the motion carried and move on to our next item of business, which is business arising from the minutes.
Mr. Chair,
You'll have to be patient with me, Brenda, because this is a different system than what I'm used to.
okay,
So,
whenever you're ready.
okay. Oh, okay. So we're good to go. We don't have to press any buttons. No, go ahead then, Director Lee.
Thank you, Chair Cornfield. I just wanted to highlight to the board in the minutes that one of the strategic outcomes of our planning sessions was to request expanding clinic grants in rural, remote, and Indigenous communities. And this is something that we can now address, as I have a motion put forward to be considered later in the agenda, but it's in accordance with the strategic planning directions. Thank you.
Any other business arising? Seeing none, we'll move on. Petitions and delegations, none. Reports, the management report for receipt.
Motion receive.
Thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Okay. So discussion? Do I see Director Anderson, your hand?
Yes, you do. Thank you. Yeah, just following up on what Director Lee said, it's in the management report here from November of last year that we gave direction to look further with Island Health for partnership around these three things, this health hub idea, expanding grants to the rural remote communities, and supporting long-term care facilities. I'm certainly inclined to support Director Lee's proposal, but I'm not sure whether it's comprehensive enough or goes far enough. And my memory was from the Cortez Clinic is some time ago, maybe back in the spring, they were in communication with Island Health staff or hospital district staff around providing to them what kind of grants would be useful, having a more fulsome conversation to address this direction that we gave in our strategic planning. And I would just love to hear from staff. Has that been happening throughout the region? And is there a report forthcoming about the needs of our remote, our small clinics, so that we could know if this 10,000 went far enough, and if there were going to be indeed sort of an evolving process or an expanded process rather than just a doubling of a grant? Thank you.
Through to staff. James.
Thanks, Director. Certainly the upcoming motion from Director Lee, it fits with the direction that the board gave in November, with the motion the board gave in November. And also, I can't speak for Island Health, and we don't have Island Health reps on the call today. They will attend in future meetings to discuss these three initiatives and other partnership. But I can assure you that Island Health is in regular contact with the rural remote community health facilities and clinics. And Island Health is there from an operating perspective with respect to funding and providing those supports. The grant discussion, the doubling of the grants, it is in play. We are putting together contact information and reaching out to those health clinic facilities, and we will be bringing that back to the board based on the November motion. We'll be bringing that back to the board in subsequent meetings, and as part of the financial plan, which would be at the February board meeting, we'll be reintroducing this topic to both reflect on Director Lee's suggestion should the board pass that, but also to build upon the November motion.
Thank you. And my memory was that prior to this motion from November of just a few months ago, this did come up in some kind of, I don't know, strategic planning process that we did as a board, and that that Island Health was specifically following up with our remote community clinics about the grant expansion specifically and asking for financials, et cetera. So I would just hope that the RHS, real hospital district staff, are able to coordinate with the information that they have gleaned and bring it back to us, because although I certainly don't begrudge doubling the grant, I would really like to have a more comprehensive view about whether that's enough or how to really be meeting the needs within our capacity, and be in an iterative conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, we're in regular contact with Island Health. They're stretched extremely thin right now given the Omicron variant and the ongoing pandemic, but we are in regular contact, and bearing in mind that Island Health has that regular dialogue with the health clinic facilities from the operating perspective. So we'll try to characterize that when we come forward around the grant opportunity that the hospital board is considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Director? Okay. I have Director Hamir followed by Director Grieve.
Thank you, Chair. And I think James might have just answered what I was going to ask regarding the consolidated services in the Comox Valley. I was wondering if staff had a chance to meet with Island Health, and if there was a timeline when we might hear back from them with a proposal. But I realize it's a tough time right now.
Yeah, thanks. Just to add to that, we have had those conversations. They are ongoing, and we'll need to have more conversations as we consider the long-term care and the community service health hubs. Our intention is to bring back material as we're able to gather it, and some of that would be for the financial plan discussions in the February board meeting.
And some will come up at the next strategic planning session too, right? With Island Health.
Yeah, we'll be able to introduce that through the budget process and
Right.
ongoing hospital board meetings. Yeah.
Okay. Director Grieve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear then, the goal and the role of this board is to fund capital upgrades only, correct?
Currently, yes,
Thank you.
at listed facilities.
Yeah, that's another one.
Right.
Yeah, more discussions needed, obviously, this is I'm not going to oppose the director's direction on this, but one question is accountability. Do we regulate reporting on this from the remote communities clinics?
There's a couple of ways the reporting happens. I believe there's some requirements through the provincial legislation on some of the reporting requirements, and also we have that. I believe that's built into the financial planning policy.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you, Director. Director Anderson for a second time.
Thank you. That brought up a question of the scope of what the grant allows. I know it's capital, not operations, but would this grant be allowed to improve an actual building or expand a building, or does it have to be a capital item that can be, removed? Because these clinics are, in the case of Cortez, I don't think the only one is owned not by VHA or the regional district, but rather by a society. And I know on Cortez, we're looking for an expansion. Is that, and I can take this offline with somebody, but is that a permitted expense?
I think your question is a good one. Right now, my understanding is it's a grant and aid. How that grant and aid is used is an issue between Island Health and the local clinic that we fund the grant to. I'll get James to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's my understanding is we provide the grant. It's administered by or through Island Health in their regular ongoings on, and I don't believe it was restricted to just to capital.
The grants, as Chair mentions, they are unconditional in that sense. That said, I would like to be able to report back to the board when we come with the staff report that would speak to the direction that was given in November.
Right, and I think that that's the appropriate way to deal with this. Appreciate Director Lee's recommendation, at least through motion that's further on in the agenda. I think these things and what the correct amount, what it can be used for is all part and parcel of the discussion approved by the board to further assessment analysis be undertaken, whether or not what is the correct amount, what are the terms and conditions of providing that support and financial aid to those rural areas still has to be discussed at length as to what it can carry and everything else. But we still would need some money in the financial plan, would we not? Through the staff?
Some money in the financial plan for awarding the grants?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and if we can change that grant amount, put it in the financial plan, but it wouldn't get spent until we worked all of the details out.
That's correct.
Correct. Hopefully that helps. Is there any other speakers on the management or on receipt of the management report? Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none and hearing none, I declare the receipt motion passed. And we'll move on to the report dated December 16th on territorial acknowledgements.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to the recommendation.
Move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion. Okay, I'm seeing no hands. So on territorial acknowledgement, is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to item 3, the audit service plan.
Move receipt of audit service plan.
Second.
And
Thank you.
I have a potential minor suggestion amendment.
Okay.
For
Pardon me. Yes, we'll go on. Director Lee, hold your questions. We'll go to our staff presentation first.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to introduce Katie Powell. Katie is our Manager of Financial Operations, and she will introduce the staff report. Katie?
Thank you, James. Through the Deputy CAO to the Chair and Directors, the audit service plan for the year ended December 31st, 2021 is being provided to the board today for information. The audit is an annual process, so presentation of the audit service plan may seem familiar. The plan and the engagement letter have been prepared by MNP, the hospital district's external auditors. Professional standards require the auditor to communicate with those charged with governance, and MNP recognizes the board's authority by submitting the 2021 audit service plan for review and receipt. The service plan outlines the audit approach, engagement team, scope of the audit, and expected timelines for deliverables. It also highlights any upcoming changes in the accounting standards that are anticipated to impact the financial statements. And while you may have noted there are a number of upcoming changes, these are not anticipated to impact the hospital district. As I mentioned, the audit service plan does outline expected timelines, and while the timelines noted in the plan are aligned with those of the CBRD, we are anticipating that the audit of the hospital district will be completed and presented to the board in March. Corey Vanderhurst, the audit partner from MNP, is also on the call today, and we're available to answer any questions that you might have about the audit service plan.
Thank you very much, Katie. And through to the board, questions on the audit service plan on receipt?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yep, Director Lee.
Thank you. Far be it from me to audit the audit service plan, but when I was reading the overview, the second paragraph says that the audit will apply to the year ended December 31st, 2020. And I think that could have been just a cut and paste from last year, and they didn't change the date to 2021. I think that the audit will apply to the year ending December 31st, 2021. If
Okay, I believe that you are, hang on.
That is correct. The audit will apply to the period from January 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021.
Okay, so just a typo then, and thank you for picking up on that, Director Lee.
Thank you.
Anything further? Your hand up is still up, Director Lee.
Oh, I'll put it down. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, anything further? I had just a couple of questions on the new reporting developments that are required now. Can I get staff just to give me the Coles Notes version of the 4 new and amended reporting pieces, which is shown, I believe, on page 2 of the, or page 2 of the report.
Yeah, Katie, would you be able to just go over the new reporting developments for the directors?
Of course. Through the chair to the directors, the new reporting developments, as I mentioned, are not anticipated to have an impact on the financial statements of the hospital district. The reason being, the majority or the largest new reporting development relates to asset retirement obligations. And because the hospital district doesn't own any assets, this won't be applicable to the financial statements of the hospital district. The second one is related to revenue, PS 3400. And the revenue recognition standards, it's more so related to timing of revenue recognition, where there are certain performance obligations, and the type of revenue that the hospital district has is not impacted by this new standard. And the last two amendments are related to financial instruments. The financial instruments standard primarily relates to how items such as derivatives are recognized in financial statements. And again, this is not applicable to the hospital district, given that we don't have those type of investments.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarity. So basically the new reporting developments don't have any effect on us, and we'll carry on much like we have in previous years.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further hands up on the audit service item for receipt. Is there anyone in opposition? Seeing none, call a motion carried and move over to the financial policy amendment request.
Move it.
For a
Second.
second. Thank you.
Second, Abram.
For receipt. And if I can, I think we had considerable discussion under the business arising from the minutes, unless, did I hear someone? No, okay. I don't see any hands up. Oh, wait a minute. Director Abram.
Yeah. Sorry, quick on the draw. I heard James say something in his sort of explanation when we were back further in the management report. And he talked about this as being a grant, which it is, from the regional district to the named facilities, and that it is managed by Island Health. I'd like further explanation of that as to how we could be giving the money. It's not matched, I don't believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. And if it's not, then why is somebody other than the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District and the named facility managing the money?
Okay, and if I can, Director Abram, that was my comment that I made. Maybe poor choice of words when I say manage, but we provide the funding, but we don't determine what it's for right now. And it's much like our capital projects. They provide us, Island Health provides us with a list of the capital projects that are due for funding. We decide whether we're going to fund them or not, but it's up to them to acquire the asset and, you know, for capital expenditure. So they do all of that administration. We just provide the our 40% funding. And I don't know, James, could you help clarify it maybe a little bit better? But my understanding is that it's similar.
Yeah, certainly the board's current financial planning policy speaks to unconditional grant to those named facilities. And that is, it's just that, it's a $5,000 unconditional grant to those facilities. I separately, but obviously somewhat connected, Island Health works with those facilities on a very regular basis. And so maybe that's where some of the confusion came from, that Island Health has a direct role with those facilities. But from the CSRHD's financial planning policy perspective, this is an unconditional grant to those facilities for $5,000 currently.
I'm sorry if I created any confusion.
If I could, well, no, I think no confusion was created. I'm just confused. an unconditional grant means just that. It's an unconditional grant. So therefore, it has no conditions on it. They can do with it as they please within the mandate of that facility. But if they are being directed or overseen by Island Health, are their requirements and criteria for use of that money, are they more stringent than what might be expected if it was just an unconditional grant from the regional hospital district? And if so, I don't believe that's correct. I don't believe it's appropriate.
Do you want to tackle this part or do you want me to?
Given the interest in this question, we can certainly try to provide some reporting on that when we come back in the next meeting around, again, the motion from November. And if this passes, this motion here, I don't have an answer for that specifically today, as that is a relationship between Island Health and the rural clinics.
Okay, thank you, James.
Thanks, James. And I think, Jim, this is going to be part of the discussion when we get in, as we proceed on the 3 items that were in the motion, which was evolving and expanding clinic grants in rural, remote, and Indigenous communities. We haven't had Indigenous communities at all before. So there's some new stuff here, and that'll all be part and parcel with the partnership with Island Health. Oh, I have Director Wally, Lee, and Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to point out that Area A of Strathcona Regional District, when in the past I have given grants to our local health clinic, they have used them for whatever they please, mowing the grass or whatever. So there was no condition whatsoever from Island Health and what they use that money for.
Okay, thank you, Director. Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is absolutely not tied to Island Health. This is for the clinics. It's a grant directly from us to them. And I would like to, once this report is received, I would like to speak to my recommendation, please.
Yeah, I'll allow you to move your recommendation when we get there. Okay. And Director Anderson.
Thank you. I know that we're on receipt and it's certainly not a time for any deferral, but I certainly support this. But as I said earlier, I don't know whether this is comprehensive enough or meets the needs of communities, whether there should be flexibility from year to year, depending on what various rural clinics need. So my question through to staff is, would it be advisable perhaps to defer this matter until next month when a staff report is brought back about this? Because I'm cautious about putting 10,000 in and then needing to have a discussion all over again next month if indeed it's 15 or 30 or variable.
Right now,
just any timeline suggestion from staff about how to procedurally deal with this in the best way.
Right now, we are merely on receipt of the correspondence from Director Lee.
I understand that.
And in my opinion, it wouldn't be appropriate to defer receipt of something that's already been written.
No.
Because so the
Certainly
next step would be to have a requested action, which was part of her request, which is on the agenda. And then the board can debate it and decide what to do with that, whether it's to approve or deny or refer.
Okay, I would ask that you receive my comments once the motion's made then, rather than me needing to repeat myself.
I'm not sure I heard you correctly, Director Anderson. So
I'll ask the same question again after the motion is made.
That's fine. I will call a question unless there's any more hands And I only see Director Anderson's hand up, so on receipt, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, call a question. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion receipt carries. Now,
Move the
request-
recommendation.
Thank you, Director Lee. Is there a second?
Second, Davis.
Pardon me?
Wally and Davis both seconded.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, you can figure out who's gonna be on the minutes as seconder. Okay, and the planning policy is attached for reference, right? So discussion, Director Lee and then Director Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would encourage the board members to support this motion. Although we may want more information at a subsequent meeting, I believe that this direction will be a placeholder for increasing the rural grants, and we can always adjust it if the staff come back with any minor amendments to this. We haven't increased the grant for quite a few years. And I know that the remote, rural, and Indigenous communities have been experiencing some tremendous hardships lately that do affect the health of their population. And I believe that our hospital district needs to ensure that our rural clinics are supported with the equipment and all the supports they need to help them get through some of these crises. Increasing the rural grant will allow for better equipping of these clinics, a better ability to respond to the medical needs of the communities. And in relation to our hospital budget, we have, I believe, more than $5 million, or approximately $5 million in our budget, and a $5,000 increase to the 6 rural clinics. It's 6, isn't it? $30,000 in terms of our overall $5 million would likely work out to 1/10 of a penny per household. It isn't very much money in terms of our budget, and I think it's important to get this on the table and get it into the budget now. And then if there's a budget amendment required on the advice of staff later, then we can do that later. But for now, I would like to make sure this gets into the budget.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you very much.
if that was a motion, I'll second it.
She already has a motion on the floor and seconded, and it's on your screen.
The motion's as printed.
Yeah. And so I have Director Wally, your hand, Director Lee, your hand's still up, and then
Okay, it's coming down.
Director Wally.
Yeah, it was just a seconded, but I didn't realize it already been seconded.
Yeah. Okay, so your hand's still up, Gerald.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Oh, Director Hillian and then Director Davis.
Thanks, Chair. I certainly support this. I think it's important to note that the relationship between Island Health and the clinics is related to operating costs. And I think it's good that we're providing this money that gives them some extra dollars. I would just like to hear from staff regarding whether this is considered appropriate at this particular time, as Director Lee has stated.
Go ahead, James.
Thank you, Director. Yes, it's entirely appropriate. And with the next board meeting, with the report that we'll bring forward around November's motion, I would look to incorporate this motion, if it's passed, into that discussion, because it's aligned entirely with what the board put forward to explore 2 months ago.
And my second question, I understand that we were also looking at potential expansion to Indigenous communities as noted. That's not included in this particular motion, but presumably we will hear further back from staff at subsequent meetings about whether or not we can move forward with that aspect.
Yes, that's correct.
Thanks.
And thank you, Director Hillian, for bringing up that point. Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to say, as a member of a small rural community, that we could certainly use this money. It's essentially just petty cash, but we could really appreciate that for updating some of our small equipment and supplies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And your hand's still up, Martin. There we go. Thank you. So any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, call a question. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. On to our next item of business, which is termination.
So moved.
I was waiting for someone to say it there. Thank you, Director.
Second.
Comment again. Thank you very much, board. I look forward to working with the whole board and especially Vice Chair Hillian. And as we carry on into new territory. So thank you. Call a motion. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much for your attendance today.